Introduction, Linda Marie. And first off, I'd like to say hearts out and best wishes to anybody recovering from those hurricanes and floods out there. With you all we can be. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just give you a little bit of a walkthrough. Oh, hello. We've got some folks joining. So what we're going to do here is just getting started. I'm going to give you a little introduction of what IngramSpark is and how it works in a slide or two. And then I'll go into how bookstores, and on the very last slide, I'll even show you how public libraries are utilizing the service to engage with their community or to create content themselves. So for that, I need to share the screen. All right, so let's see what you're seeing yet. Okay, can you see that? Hello?
Yes, we can see it.
All right, good. Just making sure. All right, here we go. So IngramSpark, an indie resource. So how it works for anyone using IngramSpark. So what IngramSpark is Ingram Book Company's print-on-demand platform, which allows any author or publisher of any size and scale access to Ingram's distribution network through Lightning Source's print-on-demand capabilities. So that's where the division comes in. Lightning Source, also an Ingram company, is the printer, and Ingram Book Company, as you know, is the wholesaler distributor. They get the books out, Lightning Source creates the books. The way IngramSpark fits into that is we're the platform that allows for content to be ingested so that it can be printed at Lightning Source. So the way IngramSpark came about, just to give you a little history, is Robin Cutler actually created IngramSpark 5 years ago. We just celebrated our 5th birthday in July, so we're still kind of in infancy and grow exponentially every day. So 5 years ago, Lightning Source was created to help traditional publishers and publishers of certain size and scale keep their backlist titles in the market for as long as possible, because typically, you go out of print, go OSI, and if they were only selling 10 or 20 copies of the book a year, it didn't warrant doing a new print run. With John Ingram creating print on demand, that gave these publishers the opportunity to keep books around and in distribution forever through a model that didn't require storing inventory. So with that and the IngramSpark platform, we had, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we had a real big influx of smaller independent publishers and local independent authors trying to get into Lightning Source to do the same type of work. Well, Lightning Source was very much at the time set up to talk publisher lingo, to be working with traditional publishers. I remember when I was a Lightning Source rep 7 years ago, it took 14 days to open an account. You can do that in 28 minutes now at IngramSpark. So when it took, going from 14 days and a ton of paperwork to open an account to a 28-minute quick turnaround in an interface, is kind of, what IngramSpark is about for these local and independent authors. We're trying to introduce them into the world and bring them into the publishing world in a way that they're fitting into the flow of everything and how everything, flows within the industry, from books getting to stores to getting back in proper terms and proper formats, all that good stuff. So with IngramSpark, all you have to do is you open an account, which is free to do, and then you would come to us with print-ready files. So unlike CreateSpace, who just went out of offering these services in July, they do not anymore. We did not and do not offer creative services to help you get your files print-ready. When you come to us, you're uploading print-ready files to a flat platform that's already talking to the printer. So what will happen is you would come in with those print-ready files, a cover file and an interior file. You'll upload the books to your IngramSpark account. Our team will take 24 to 48 business hours to process those files, make sure that they're printable, that they pass specification. If they don't, you'll get an email saying, hey, these files don't pass specification, you need to fix this, or here's why, and then it's on the publisher to get that fixed. That's where you see a lot of folks offering services for file design and author services and things like that, because there is work that's required, professional work that's required to get to where you're actually professionally printing. So let's say you've uploaded those files, they pass the review process, they're good to go. You'll receive an e-proof, which is a print PDF that you can look over, or excuse me, a print PDF, and an e-PDF that you can look over, review. I highly recommend ordering a copy yourself to look over before it goes out. Printing, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts in creating your files, processing the files. You're going from RGB screens to different types of printers with the 4-process printing. So there's a lot of moving parts that go into creating a book that is actually going to be ready for market, ready to sell on the shelf. And when you're self-publishing, you get to experience every single one of those moving parts. And sometimes it's not a great experience because you see every little step along the way to what it takes to get that book ready for market, which is sometimes why you see a lot of self-publishing authors and independent publishers so passionate about these books, not only because they wrote them. There's a long, arduous process they went through just to get these books created, and they're trying to get to the end point. So you've got the books, you've uploaded your files. Let's say they pass, they're ready for print. At that point, you receive your digital e-proof, you look it over, you like it, and then you can either just let the book be ready for print, or you can order one copy for yourself. I recommend ordering at least 3 or 4 just so you can see it printed 3 or 4 times, look at consistency across the print. And on these types of transactions, you're paying print costs plus shipping. So there's shipping involved because you're only paying the print cost of the book plus the shipping. So it's good that you're already going to be paying a little shipping. You might as well get 3 or 4 more units on there and just make it worth your while. So you've got the books, you've ordered a couple, you look them over, they look good, you like them. At that point, you can approve the book for printing, and you can either approve the book to where it's just printed for your own purposes. You're either going to drop shipment somewhere, or you're going to print books and have them shipped to yourself. And then, that's the end of your experience. Or you're going to say, hey, I want to make this book available to the market, and I want Ingram to fulfill the orders on my behalf. At this point in the conversation, this is where a publisher, independent author gets the opportunity to set their terms that you're going to see on iPage. So this is where typically what happens is a bookstore is talking to an author and says, I need 40%, for example. So the author says, okay. They go into their IngramSpark account and they'll place a 40% discount on that. Well, what the author's doing by placing a 40% discount on that at that moment is saying, hey, Ingram, as the author publisher, I'm going to sell you this book at a 40% discount so you can turn around and sell it to your bookstores at the 40% discount. That's not how it works with Ingram in the middle being a wholesaler. There's got to be more discount involved. So what happens is when a publisher sells into Ingram, they have to sell in at a full trade discount. So in this scenario, you want to tell the author publisher, hey, I need a full trade discount, not a 40% or a 41 or whatever it is that the discount is you're looking for. What you need to tell them is I need a full trade discount, because in our terms, that lets them know, oh, they need to set the full 55%. Because in the wholesale world, a publisher has to sell in at a 55% so that Ingram can turn around and sell it at the discount that retailer is used to getting from Ingram themselves. So that's why a lot of times you'll get a lot of confusion in the conversation, and it's okay to reach out to me and let me explain to you the bookstore. Bookstores are always free to reach out to me directly. I'll work and answer any questions I can. But that's where a lot of the frustration comes from when you tell them you need a certain discount. They say, I did that, and you don't understand what's going on. That there's a middle piece in that, which is Ingram Wholesale and IngramSpark, the printer. So you've got the book. You've got it set up for distribution. You've set terms. You've got a full trade discount. You've set the book as returnable. The publisher gets to choose whether they want non-returnable or returnable. That's all up to the publisher. So in that point, the publisher says, yes, I am interested in being in the bookstore market. I'm going to be out marketing to bookstores. I'm going to be out knocking on bookstore doors. So I want that book full trade and returnable. So now they've got a book that's actually set up for a reg discount within iPage. So at this point, your book's up and running. You've ordered a couple copies. You're at this. You can order as many books as you want for yourself. You can order 1. You can order 1,000. You can order 10,000. You can order as many books as you need with print on demand. Well, say I've got the book up for sale, and Kimberly loves the book that I did, and she's going to bring it into the country bookstore or country bookshop. And so what happens is she'll order it from Ingram like she does any other purchase. And within my IngramSpark account as the author publisher, I'm going to get paid for a sale that happened at Ingram. And what I get paid is based off the compensation calculator that I use. And that's based off the retail price that I set, whether I have it at a trade full discount or a short discount, and then whatever the print cost per unit is. So that math works out. And so let's just say for the sake of math, it's a $20 retail. and there's a it's a 50% discount. That's not full trade. That'd be short and eye page, but this is just for math. So let's say it's a 50% discount that the author puts on him on a $20 book. That means every time that you all in the market or somebody in the market orders that book from Ingram, Ingram is paying $10 for that book from the publisher, from the author. And then they turn around and sell it through, through iPage or through your POSs, however it is as you're ordering at the discount that you're used to getting. Well, in that scenario, the publisher is going to see $20 minus the 50% discount in which they sold it. So they sold it for $10. Say it cost $3.50 to print that book. It's a paperback trade, 6x9, 300 and something pages, 200 and something pages. So say it's roughly $3.50 to print in this math. So now Ingram bought the book from the publisher for $10. The publisher sold the book for $10. IngramSpark, the printer, makes money for printing books. So we would keep the $3.50 in that scenario because that was the print charge associated with that unit. And the publisher would receive an automatic deposit for Ingram for $10 minus the print cost of $3.50. So that's how the math works on the publisher side. So that's a lot of times why you see them, just like any publisher in the market would want to, trying to get that cheaper discount in there is because they would make more on the back end, the same as any other publisher. It's just a game of volume, as we all know. But that's the math that these publishers and authors are working with when they're coming through us and coming and speaking with you in store. So in this scenario, Ingram orders the books, or you order the books from Ingram, IngramSpark and Lightning Source print and ship the books via Ingram where they need to go. We pay the publisher for the sale. And essentially that is the gist of, essentially that is the gist of using the platform. But let's talk about how bookstores are currently utilizing IngramSpark. And if I go a little long, just wave at me, Linda, and I'll quit. Stores are using the platform to offer printing services to local authors, like Kimberly is going to talk about today. We have stores that are commissioning authors to write books of local interest to sell in stores. So Village Books does this really well over the years, where they'll say, hey, there's a local bridge in town. If there was a book written on that bridge, I know I could sell 500 of them right away because everybody loves the story of this bridge. Well, it's just so unique and so central to that store that there's nobody that's really going to publish the book, even outside of a self-publisher, would probably be the only way you could get it. So what Village Books does is say, okay, I know the author's here. They'll commission an author to write a book on the subject matter that they want and do it as a contract payment. And that way the book comes over to the Village Press or Village Books Press publishing house. And now Village Books is the publisher and the retailer for this book. So not only are they not paying wholesale pricing for the book, they're ordering the book at print cost plus shipping and then selling it in store at retail. Or what happens with Village Books a lot is the other shops in town that also sell books that are very specific to the region start making Village Books their wholesaler to order the books to fulfill in store. Because a lot of times, a lot of bookstores won't make those books available for DI because, or when I say DI, distribution, they don't make them available for distribution just because they are selling them only in store. So what happens is you become the only spot to get that content. And Village Books does that really well. Okay, so I've got a lot more here. I'm going to include the slides going forward, but we're going to talk a lot about what you see on this slide right here. So we got Jamille from Eagle Eye. Her team's going to talk about what they do for author education referrals, which is great. You'll see stores like Paper Cuts who are creating their own content that you see there on the right. Politics and Prose, Bookshop Santa Cruz, Village Books. These are all stores that are offering full-out publishing and printing services to their local author communities. They're very open about how they do it, and their websites explain it in great detail what they offer here. And then here's some of the books that you're seeing published by bookstores. This is an old slide. This is from almost a year ago, so there's a lot more.
Gosh, I don't think your slides are,
What's that?
your slides haven't been advancing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And actually, we can see a couple slides, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry. Yeah, and then that's it. So really, that's the gist of it. We have stores that use IngramSpark as a referral point. We have stores that that ask us for information so they can do author education days, like Jamille's going to talk about. And then we have stores that make us part of their printing network. And we're not the only printer to use. You could use your local regional printers. That's what makes some of these stores so great at what they do. Is they utilize not only IngramSpark, but they utilize the printers near them for different types of runs that we don't do at trim, different trim size runs that we don't do, or for posters or for bookmarks and other types of aspects that they can use to implement into their printing materials. Sorry, ladies, I'll let you go for now.
That's okay. Thank you. And maybe we can see your slides at the end if you want to advance.
I'll send you the deck and you can share it with everybody if you
Okay,
like.
that would be great.
Yep.
So Kimberly, you were going to talk about how you use IngramSpark in your services at your store.
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute myself there. Yeah, so I first
interrupt. Josh needs to unshare his screen so that Kimberly can share hers.
He's on it.
So I first started doing this when I heard about, well, I wanted to do this. I heard what was going on from Josh, and started, and basically over the time I've copied what other bookstores do. So we have two avenues that we do. One is the publishing services side. So we kind of copied Village Books that Josh introduced us to pretty directly, where we offer a menu of publishing services from project management to us doing in-house printing, which is us being like the person facilitating IngramSpark. We can do a training session for IngramSpark where we'll sit down with you and just tell you what to do. I bought a bunch of ISBNs so I can help you with that. We have some graphic designers who we use, or we can connect you with separately. And then we'll just do the work for IngramSpark for you. So that's one avenue, and it's, as Josh said, basically just providing the creative services that IngramSpark doesn't provide, and I can't even remember the other self-publishing service sites don't necessarily do. The other thing that we do is we publish our own books. So we're kind of booked up for the next few years, but I started with this book, which is Southern Sunrises by Tom Bryant. He's a local columnist. And I wanted to basically just see if it was as easy as Josh said it was. And it was. And these were already, I knew I'd sell a bunch because he has a great following in town, and they were already edited, and it seemed like a good home run trial run. And so, it's a book. We have some drawings. The graphic designer pulled it all together, and it was actually as easy as Josh said it was to print the book. For our second book, we did a guy with a great local following, a writer who had a pretty terrible car accident and now has pretty severe brain damage. It's this book of poetry called Proof. We got an introduction by Michael Knight, who is familiar with Murray, and just, a book of poetry that sold really quite well. And we have some upcoming books. We're doing one about the history of the Bookshop to celebrate our 65th anniversary, and that's basically just like a collage of our history, like the newspaper articles, photos over the years, essays from people who've worked there, transcripts of conversations, and that'll be exclusively sold through us. Like Josh said, no distribution. These, any of y'all could get to carry in your store. It's sold on Amazon. It's sold on Barnes & Noble. You can buy it on Ingram at trade discount. And interestingly enough, as we had the SIBO revival at the bookshop this summer, as Josh was doing his presentation and talking about not just the books, but the other thing we can print, what we're hoping to send to the printer today or tomorrow, the North Carolina bookstores of the Piedmont, we're doing a calendar this year. So we've had a map, and, you can collect all the bookstores and you stamp the map. Well, this year we're doing a calendar that we'll have it designed, and then you can either, if people want to upload it as the publisher, they can print it themselves at the publisher cost, or if you want to just order it off Ingram to sell in your store, you can do that. And I'm excited about that. We're also doing a journal for our 65th anniversary party. That'll be a kind of exclusive upcoming projects. We have a couple kids books One that keeps getting moved to the back burner, but I think I need to, just get it done, because is the book of these great local historical articles that have been in our Pine Straw magazine, our local arts and literature magazine. And for a lot of the creative services, moving over to that side, it's meeting with people, and I'm learning to charge for the time and just explaining how they can do it themselves, and giving the advice. And they really want just a 30 minutes to an hour conversation of, here's what you do and here's how to do it. I think if I had somebody like Jamille or, and I've had people in the past where we can take on more of that work easily, but at this point it's we're kind of just directing them on how to do it themselves. So it's kind of like everything the store does, it evolves with the staff that you have in place. But that's kind of, I think it's limitless. I love publishing. I think it's so easy. And I think that there's so many titles I want to do. It's just, IngramSpark makes it easy. I call it the back end of what we do. It's, our printing services is the back end of the publishing company. It's kind of the terminology that I use. And do y'all have any questions, or do we do questions at the end? That's kind of my...
Let's do questions at the end so that Jamille can present, but people could write their questions in the chat box too if it's occurring to them, and then Wanda can interject too. But if we could move on now to Jamille if you want to talk about how you work with IngramSpark at Eagle Eye.
Okay. Mine's probably going to be a lot shorter because I'm a lot better at answering questions than just starting topics. What I'll do is I'll just go through what we do, our marketing process. So mine is more set up for a single person to handle the consignment programs. If you're good with project management software. Let me get started here. Let me share my screen. And let me get to the right. Let me get to my website here. All right. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so on our website, anybody that calls in, or if I get an email, which we get a lot of those, I send them to this site and this on our webpage. And it gives you like advice, tells you exactly how our program is laid out, how to get your book in for consideration, and then the packages that I offer. Again, it's more aimed towards marketing. And this also weeds out like where they are in the process. Some people come to us before they're going to print. Some people, a lot of them, unfortunately, are more on the back end where they've already printed their book. Once they walk through this, then they can send their book to me, whether they drop in or they put it in the mail. Then when I consider it, then I offer them the packages. The packages are based off of what I think about the book. One thing that I have found that's very effective is part of the consultation of just giving me your book for consideration. I will for free rip it apart and tell you what's wrong with it and why bookstores will have a problem with it. I have found that works very effectively because if they do a consignment and they take my advice, they will sell more books, but also they are very appreciative that you're willing to be very honest with them. And so for instance, this woman, I'll show you this book here. She came in and her book was with IngramSpark, but it was done it wasn't formatted very well. The pages were white and black, so the contrast was too high. It hurt your eyes. The picture was gloss, but now the book, I gave her a bunch of suggestions, and now the book looks fantastic. It's really, if you can kind of see the formatting is really well done. So because of that, she came back and she got like the big packages, and then each book that she writes, she comes back and again does the big packages. So it's very effective to gain trust, I think. It also is a really good time to, with my suggestions, I basically send them off with a bunch of IngramSpark stuff. Like they end up with the brochures, they end up with like pretty much everything that I have. I get to show them samples, and I suggest, like when hers was gloss, I whipped out a non-gloss book and I told her that it would be a really good idea for her to change the cover to more of a matte, and then I showed her examples of it. So that's how, and Josh is probably very willing to send you samples, but it really helps out a lot to develop trust when you are doing a consignment program. So once they have the book and it looks good, then I tell them what I will accept for their package. Like maybe some that I think they're doing a great job with marketing, I may tell them that the marketing package may not be worth it for them. Mostly what they're paying for with the premium marketing package is the consultation. The newsletter too, but mostly the consultation. In the consultation, I really rip apart what it is that they want to do with the book. They want to get books put into stores. Then we go over their Ingram, just like what Josh was talking about with the short discount. Make sure that it's returnable. Make sure that, and I show them what it looks like on the bookseller side and tell them what they need to do to go fix their book on the Ingram side. Let's see. For the consultation, I basically go through how to make a press kit. I go through all of these links. I suggest to them like going and getting their book reviewed, because that looks good on press releases when they send them to, let me open up chat just in case somebody is asking me a question. I can't figure out how to do
There is a question for you.
There is, okay, hold on.
I've got a couple questions I'm sitting on. I just said as soon as Jamille was done, we'd address all these. There's questions.
Okay. Okay.
I've got them here.
Okay. I'll just keep going and then you guys can ask. So I suggest, they go and they get their book reviewed. You can go to Kirkus and pay. There are links here that help you to put your books in for different awards. That also looks very good, although sometimes they need like a introductory fee to get into the award. That we are lucky we have the Book Fest, so I always suggest the Book Fest for them, for emerging writers. Of course, SEBA. I usually can get them to join SEBA pretty easily, and I implore them to, because if they're wanting to get into brick and mortar stores, it's a really good idea to be part of SEBA. The ABA, and then I give you some suggestions. There are like people that are a group of retirees. This is my favorite. There's a group of retirees out there that are just looking to review books. They decide who they pick, but you can put your book in there, which I think is a great idea. It's free, but it's whenever they feel like doing it. And then we talk about meetups, we talk about book clubs, we talk about churches, we talk about going to the YMCA. Usually they'll let you do some sort of writing course or something that would be free for the community. And that's a good way to get your book out there. There's just so many different ideas, and it just really more is catered towards the author and how they would be good at marketing. Because one of the things is they get so overwhelmed, especially when they are going up against a big publisher like Penguin. They're like, oh, I could never do that. And really, it's just about connecting to people around you, and you need to go with what you're good at, as opposed to trying to do something that you're not good at with like social media. But if you're good at going to the YMCA and doing free, teaching people how to write, you may end up with quite the cluster of people that follow you. That's what one of our writers that we deal a lot with, she is with a big publisher, but I mean, every time she goes somewhere, she just has a horde of people because she supports other writers and she supports the community so much that people are willing to read her books and buy her books, and that's really what it's about. So that's, I think, about all. Oh, sometimes I'll even design a press release for somebody if they're not very good. If they're not very good at design, that's another thing. That's another part of the consultation. So, and then Josh has sent me some books on publishing, and I can't remember. There's like 2 of them, but that the package includes that too. So we definitely use Ingram quite a lot with our consignment program. All right. So that's about it.
Okay. We have a bunch of questions. I guess Wanda's going to feed them.
Okay.
Sorry, I started talking before I was unmuted. So there's a question about the quality of the books and what Ingram can publish. And my understanding, Josh, I'll turn this to you, is that you can do hardcover, paperback, different kinds of paper, just about anything that can be printed. And you do calendars and journals and chapter books and pictures books. It's everything. The sizes.
Well, so what we do is it is limited compared to a traditional offset method. So if you go to IngramSpark.com without even opening an account, you can go to the printing and shipping calculator. And the very first question it asks you is a trim size. When you click the drop down, you'll see the multitude of trim sizes and different variations that we offer. But we do, with it being print on demand, we do try to stick to your traditional trade sizes and your traditional shelf sizes too. So we don't get, the only things that get kind of wonky is because we service the UK too. So there's a lot of the A5 trim sizes and things like that. But pretty much it's really standard. We just started offering landscape printing at the 11.5 by 8 laid out on the side. And so to answer your question, the quality is there. The big 5 use the books. O'Reilly, 98% of their books run through here. I mean, are used to. There's just a lot of it never failed. When I was a bookstore rep for Ingram for 4 or 5 years, it would never fail that I would walk into a store, and when asked about print on demand, I could see 20 on the shelves just because that I'm used to it. But it never failed when I would go around and start picking them off. The stores would always say, oh, or the associate would always say, I had no idea that was print on demand. Oh, that's print on demand. I'm like, yes, the quality of print is no different than you're going to get from any traditional house or big traditional publisher from these indie authors. But Jamille made a very good case where if you had looked at that book that Jamille had originally looked at, you would say, oh, IngramSpark, that's awful. Look at this quality. It had nothing to do with the printing. It had everything to do with the file design, the file creation, and the file layout, and the cover design. So and then once that was corrected, then you see a very nice printed book. So I say that the print quality is definitely there, but we can only print what's on those files that are submitted and created. So that's where you want to see designers get professionally involved. I hope that helps.
Yes, and we'll talk about Dark Frog in just a second. We're going to go down. Kimberly, are you comfortable sharing numbers for how successful these works have been for you? And how has it been to sell these via Amazon? Hold on. It's scrolling past. Amazon and Barnes & Noble as well. What has that been like?
So for Southern Sunrises, we have sold about 300 copies. For Proof, just through the store, we've sold 223. And then through the other channels, I was just trying to look that up. It's a 3-month delay between when it sells through there and when you get paid through IngramSpark. But it's been really easy because I don't have to do anything. IngramSpark sets it up on Amazon, sets it up on Barnes & Noble. I literally have done nothing but just go there and check to see it's there.
And then also, Kimberly, I'll show you on ourself how to run those reports. So what she's saying is we pay out 90 days from the end of the month in which it's sold. So if your book's sold on January 1st or sold on January 21st, we're going to pay you 90 days out from January 31st. But if you go in and run a POD report, those numbers are up to date today. So we could go in and look. You may not have been paid on the sales, but you could go in and see the sales. But she'd have to go in and run a report to see that.
Jamille, how much time do you spend on this that you don't get paid for? Previously, I've seen people get paid for reviewing books like this, but it sounds like you give them a pretty heavy review without being paid.
I don't read the book. I mean, I rip through it and kind of like look for any kind of mistakes or grammar problems. But as far as what I do, it takes me 10 minutes. In fact, I have to warn them because I go very quickly when I rip it apart. I take their book and I go to our best sellers and I tell them exactly why books look the way that they do. One of the biggest things that I have to tell them is like, I don't know why you have so much going on your cover. Like, look at all of these people that have these books. It's very simple. The design is very simple. You know, people do judge books by covers, but they also don't like looking at certain things that are too busy, you know. So it's just things like that. It's very quick. Yeah, I think the longest. I also ask them if it's okay because people get very offended, but I don't really have too big of a problem. I had one lady leave the other day that was upset, but you know, that's just, I have no problem. You know, I know that eventually she'll look at those things that I said and it probably will sink in and she probably will change it even though she may not come back to me. But let me share my screen really quick and show you one thing that I did forget to show you is how I manage all of these. When you see the amount that I do, you'll realize that it is, if anything, I'm turning people away because I just don't have time and they just want to hand me money. And I'm just like, I do so many other things other than this. So let me share my screen here. Okay, this is a program called Trello, and basically what I do is when somebody comes in, I don't necessarily always do this, put a person in that I've accepted the book and I'm waiting, but you know, maybe some people like to do that. So all of these different things are what I do in the program, so I know that each, because you know, when you get more than one of them, it can be overwhelming. What I like about Trello is it gives me, because our consignment is based on 3 months, and so it gives me a date. Like, you know, obviously this person I called him and told him that he needs to come pick his books up because it's expired. As you see, this due date right here, you know, I've been waiting for a long time, but that's fine, you know. So that gives me the ability to know when these are expired, and so it gives me each individual one. All of these are color coded for which package they got. So if they got the basic, I don't really need to do anything other than maybe put it on social media. It also gives me lists of what I need to do in here and if I've accomplished it, and then I can move the slide on. And I'll tell you, Trello is the reason that I'm able to do all of these.
Wow.
So as you see, there's quite a few. Oh, and then of course some people can re-up if it's past the time, but they're good, and I don't mind carrying their books because they're selling. So then they can re-up for a smaller amount, like $30 or something like that for 3 months. They're really just basically renting the space. So this gives me the ability to really be on top of all of this so it doesn't fall apart. So as long, one person can do this as long as you have good project management.
So, hold on a second. So Jamille, So the time estimate on how much time you spend on this part of your work versus the other parts of your job, the question is really how much time does a staff member spend on this? And is that just
Well, okay, it also helps that I do the newsletter and I do the social media. So I'm doing that stuff, I'm like kind of salt and peppering it into things I'm already doing. So you can sit and focus on this, oh, I need to get all of these things done, or you can just, I'm doing those things anyway. So I just kind of salt and pepper them in. So it doesn't seem like it takes much time. And the good thing about it is they're coming to me and I'm the one that's accepting. So, I mean, and once I get those small things done outside of the consultation, I think the consultation is really the only thing that takes time, because, I set aside an hour and then I go through everything. And then of course there might be questions and answers. So that's really what takes the time, but they're paying $175 for that. That's not even including the book sales or anything along those lines. So they're paying for your time. So I haven't, especially around the book fest, I didn't do a lot. That's why it kind of looks a little empty as far as new ones go. You could tell right before the book fest, I did a bunch of them. So I kind of like control the filter of them coming in.
Josh, can a person opt not to sell via Amazon and Barnes & Noble if they want to?
Well, it's twofold. So if you turn on distribution, that data is going out. It's going out into the world in which Ingram services, and that's 39,000 plus retailers. But and I say that, but what a lot of the bookstores do, unless it's a book that they've commissioned, or like Kimberly's doing, or they do at Village Books where their name's on the book and they're acting as the publisher of the book. Because what happens is every time that book sells, your checking account is automatically getting deposited and we're paying you for the sale. Now, however you turn around and pay that back to authors and do all that, then you're acting as a publisher. So what a lot of stores do to alleviate any type of return situation or any of that is they say, we're just going to make this book available to sell in store. Well, what that also allows for is a publisher to go open their own account. So I have a bookstore there on the East Coast that called me one day, who's running a pretty big print operation out of Washington and DC, and they say, hey, it's the first time we've come across, because every book we set up with you, and then they get tons of books, over hundreds, and they got them set up, and what they're doing is they're just using them to print and fulfill their consignment sales in store, and that's all they're doing with them. So they're not making any books available for distribution. So they're only doing consignment orders in store or fulfilling print orders for the author. The author needs 50 books. They call the store orders 50 books. We have it drop shipped to them, and they charge the author, or whatever it is they're charging for that service. And they just paying the printing plus shipping to us via their account. So I say that to say that if you make it available for distribution, you'll need an ISBN, and we're going to send it out to the world. But if you don't make it available for distribution, you don't need an ISBN. We'll assign a unique SKU, and you can just print it yourself and sell it directly out of store, out of your back of house, however it is you want to do it yourself. But that would be the only way currently to exclude a distribution channel like an online retailer.
And Kimberly, what kind of marketing was done to sell that many copies of these books, or was the audience already there?
I chose books with audiences already there. Some of the upcoming ones is different. Like for Tom's book, the first one we did, it was just local coverage in a big local event. For Proof, just because it's not just poems, there's a story, and he's a great speaker. So he was on interviewed by the Raleigh television station about his story by David Crabtree, and part of this is to hopefully, I call it the Bleeding Heart Press, but give Murray hopefully a speaking career where he can go tell his story, talking to schools and different groups. And so that's just getting it out there has made that possible. And now I think after the initial sale, we'll have perennial, as he travels speaking, we'll have perennial sales after that. For some of the upcoming books, one that I'm working on with this judge who's kind of statewide, the marketing will be done mostly through him and his contacts with little cocktail parties all over North Carolina. That's my big marketing and distribution plan there. I really think that for me, mostly just focusing here in town is the smartest decision, but I've gotten roped into doing this book that's coming out in 2019 in November, which is a book about a kid whose dad's a veteran and was injured, and we've got hopefully some national publicity on that through the Patriot Foundation and different things. But I try to we know what's going to sell. I mean, we're booksellers, and so I try to only publish books where I'm paying for the graphic design and everything else. We know it's going to sell, so those are the ones I accept.
Didn't you have? Did you mention it? But didn't you have a TV spot or something that right before?
Yeah, that was Murray's. He was on. His story is wildly compelling. To almost die and come back and have brain damage and live a normal life and be able to write. The book is proof he is alive, and that we saw a real change in that. And that's the kind of thing, like, as the publishing side, that's being watched by people all over. So, we link to the Bookshop sales page, but we have it available. It's nice that it's available everywhere, and nice that I don't have to manage that.
Wanda, I do want to say I saw a question in here earlier that I didn't address that was about, it was the one right before the Dart Frog question, and I can address the Dart Frog question too if you like. But
I just talked to Gordon today, so he's he's putting together a new program.
Yeah, me too. Gordon's everywhere we are. I know Gordon very well. I am Gordon's direct contact for any IngramSpark information he gets. So yeah, so yes, the thing about Dart Frog service is that the books have to be available from Ingram, whether that's through a traditional wholesale account, whether that's through a distributor outside of us that uses Ingram as well, or what 90% of the time he does is the book fits our trim size and print capability. He basically just makes them open an IngramSpark account so that the book's available from Ingram. So that's the Dart Frog tie-in right there. That's just it, is that his service requires books to be available from Ingram, and our service makes books available from Ingram. So that's how that works out there.
And just for booksellers, I mean, it's really it seems like a win-win-win. But when I talked to him today, so any store that signs up to work with Dart Frog, and I don't think this relationship interferes with anything else you want to be doing as far as publishing goes. But he basically pays any store. He sends 15 books a quarter, so 4 times a year, and he wants them to have shelf space in your store. The first sale of every title, you keep 100% of the income. You don't pay for those. You only pay for reorders. He pays every store $100 a quarter. That's just, you get that no matter what. Then he pays every store $35 for every referral. So if you have an author who wants to get published, come in and you refer them to Dart Frog and they go, he sends you $35. Whether Dart Frog takes the book or not, you get the $35. And then the new component that we talked about today is if your author does get picked up by Dart Frog and gets published, he's paying that store $500 for that. So it's just he's basically buying shelf space, but he's doing a good job, I think.
And I will say that, and to share a story, Kelly Justice can share this story really well. So I was at the Fountain Bookstore right before the North Carolina summit that we had there at Kimberly's shop. But the night before I was at Kelly Justice's at the Fountain Bookstore doing a talk for her local authors. And so what happened was they had the Dart Frog selection when I walked in. So that was the very first store that I actually saw the Dart Frog display set up. It was right there in front, visible. She had it at the table right next to checkout, and then the table right on your left when you walked in, the signage was there. And I saw IngramSpark books right away. I was like, wow, look at all these IngramSpark books in the store. And so that's great. And then so we Kelly goes in and she's starting to introduce her panel, and she starts talking a little bit about, just working with local authors. And she started talking about Dart Frog a little bit and how the service works. And so their head bookseller went over there and picked up his favorite book off the table. And I know the author. As soon as he picked it up, I said, I know that author. He was at our booth at Book Expo writing that book, trying to upload his book to the IngramSpark platform. And then here I am 3 months later, and it's chosen as the favorite title out of all the books that were there from this store. And the guy's an amazing writer from Paris. I mean, he's a journalist who sold a ton of books, but it was really unique to be right there in Kelly's shop. And the first book they pick up was one that we hand worked the guy through, who went to Dart Frog and made it through. And to get through Dart Frog, it's no joke. Like, these books are really edited, they're vetted. He has a whole network of former industry professionals going through these books by genre, based on the genre, before they even get to you. So it's a lot of work on his part, from what I can see, but he hustles, and it seems to be well received right now.
Yep. And then for both Kimberly and Jamille, what are you requiring from the authors in terms of reciprocal partnership marketing, if anything, in addition to any fees or percentage of sales? Is it traditional 10%? What's going on?
Go ahead.
You go first.
Yeah. So I've been doing this a while, and a lot of them that do the marketing, they're not very good at it. So I've got to be getting on top of them about, putting this on your social media, once in a while. Usually the very first thing I make them do is take a picture of it at the store and then put it up on their social media, and I help them with it if they need help. Mostly it's more like I don't require it, but I gently nudge them, especially in the when we do the consultation. I tell them that they can have their, if they go and find a book, like a book club that wants to read their book, if they want to host it here, they are more than welcome to host it here for free, as long as it doesn't conflict with any other things. So it's just really trying to get them involved in the community in our bookstore. But like I said, I gently nudge them more than I.
And Jamille, in the case where you have a successful book that's moving in your store, do you talk to them about making your store sort of their store of choice as far as people ordering signed copies from your website?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've got quite a few of those. And in fact, if you do 3 months or 6 months and you sell a whole lot, then I move the programs to be much longer and more reciprocal, especially if they're moving if the books are moving. Like, we have this one book I can't keep on the shelf at all. It's been that way for 2 years. It's a book about getting better grades, and people are buying it here because there's a lot of schools around here, and they're buying them for their teenagers. So, that's just a no-brainer. They barely have to do anything. They just they bring the books in and we put them on the shelf, and then we give each other shout outs once in a while. They don't even have to pay for a package anymore. Once you sell 20 books with us, then yeah, I'm not going to make you pay to rent the space.
Okay, and Kimberly, this will be our last question. We're running out of time, but we want to hear what your relationship with authors are.
So I mentioned part of this earlier, where for what we're actually publishing ourselves, it's a case-by-case basis. In terms
is it really called Bleeding Heart Press?
That's what they wouldn't, like, my staff's like, you cannot name it that.
Okay.
So it is not official. That is internally and at my home.
And what is the name of the publisher? Is it the name of the store?
The Country Bookshop Press and Boomer or the Country Bookshop Publishing Services and Boomer Press, but I really just brand it with the store. Says the Country. Can you see the Country Bookshop Boomer Press?
Yeah.
Boomer's the name of the dog.
Gotcha.
So basically, since we're putting all the money up front, which is the money for the graphic design, covering some of the marketing expenses, we cover those costs, and then so the bookshop gets all that. And then after we've covered our investment, then they start getting royalties, which right now is a little bit cumbersome, but Josh and IngramSpark are unveiling a tool where, once again, I don't have to do any of that either. I just put it in at the setup and it'll shoot out the royalty to the author, shoot out what we get, this, that, and the other. So
time. I just need time.
That's right. I'm just waiting. I'm happily waiting. It's the biggest problem, they've solved it, which is what I like most about IngramSpark, because they just make it better every time. And then in terms of marketing, a lot of times when I'm consulting with people, I kind of remind them that every single book gets sold, even if it's a big publisher. Every single one of those books are sold through, putting them on TV with millions of people. And it's the same for your book. And so I talk about the power of email. Like, social media is great, but let's say your friends are all in book clubs, collect email addresses. Like, you have to build your own database, and just reminding them that's more powerful than social media, more powerful than TV. Like, build your own database, shoot out, and it also helps them when we have an event in the store, just through that email database. That's even more useful than anything else we could do, and just kind of cluing them into having a clipboard for people to write down emails at the playground, at their bridge club, at wherever they are. Start collecting that the second you get an inkling that you're writing your book, or you say, I'm writing a book, and they're like, oh, cool. Be like, let me take your email, have it in the notes on your phone. And that's been the most useful feedback I think I give, period.
Okay, we're going to end the recording at 3. We have about 1 more minute. But Josh, one more question for you. Do you have any accounts that are redesigning covers for books in the public domain? Or is that happening?
Yeah, that is an option for you to do. And that's probably the third bookstore that's asked about that. So there's a bookstore, a group of independent bookstores up in New England who sell a lot of books to, to the school system that are public domain titles. So what they're looking at doing, this is the project that John wants to do, but he never gets time to do it, is he wants to rebrand the covers to have the bookstore as the bookstore brand of this, or the bookstore line of this, so that it is branded and it is a specific book, but even though it is public domain, that the schools can say, hey, I'm supporting X right here with this line of books. So yes, with public domain, as the publisher, it's up to you to make sure that you're printing content that's legal. But with public domain, yeah, you see content aggregators do it all the time. They just pick it up, they refresh that cover and send it back out. There's no difference. You're just refreshing it in a different way.
Thank you.